On KDWN 720 AM and 101.5 FM in Las Vegas. Our show is produced by Green Alliance and sponsored by NV Energy, and I'm your host, Paul Ira. Today we're talking water with Doug Bennett and Toby Bickmore, and this is a pretty interesting topic. Tell us again, I don't know if you mentioned this before, but how much water has been saved through the conservation programs you folks are running?
Just our Water Smart Landscapes program has collectively saved 108 billion gallons of water.
That's amazing.
And through water banking, where we take our excess water and store it somewhere for future use, we've been able to put that all away. So
we banked 108 billion gallons?
Yeah,
wow.
Well, there's more than 108 billion gallons banked because there are various different agreements, but I just want people to know when you conserve water, in many cases, it's actually being stored somewhere for our future.
And you also mentioned how much less water we're taking than is allotted.
Right. So we're allowed 300,000 acre feet of water, and
every year, right?
Yeah. Well, nobody wants to do the math on that. I could do the math, but it'll kill the whole segment. We used in 2017. We used 243,000 of that. So we still, we're using. We still have a significant buffer before we hit the limits on our Colorado River supply, but we are concerned about the potential of shortage, because shortage agreements say you're going to take a hit, that there's going to be a bite taken out of that to help protect the lake. And so there's, that gap could actually tighten, and we think it's important that everybody pitch in, look around, and see where we're wasting water.
And what happens when we cross that threshold? What kind of additional conservation?
Well, there's, I'm not an expert necessarily in the agreements. It's going to take a bite out of Nevada's water, somewhere in the 10 to 15,000 acre foot range. But Arizona, for example, will get an enormous hit.
Yes.
And so it just really depends on what the policies say that were developed prior to this. There's a lot of negotiating going on about who's going to do what. And in some cases, you actually agree to work more closely with the partners. I mean, you don't just simply say, I'm not involved in that. Too bad for you guys. There's a lot of benefit in collaborating with the neighbors, right, and coming to agreements that everybody feels like they can live with. And a lot of that is an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a couple of different avenues that we can save water, and one of them is water conservation. The other one is in smart design or smart growth. Let's talk about the smart growth of the new homes and how we're designing new homes and new establishments to use less water.
Yeah, so if you go back like 2004 or 2005, when we had the housing boom way back when, so we wanted to start working with new builders to kind of build a more efficient house. And so we partnered with the Home Builders Association, and we've been working with KB Homes and Party Homes, Pulte Homes over time to kind of build a more efficient home. And so if you look at the footprint now, I mean, part of that is because there's less landscaping, so there's going to be less water outside, but there's definitely new technologies. An example, and these are a lot of my pet projects, but one of them is smart controllers. So your irrigation system will run kind of based on the plant's needs, not on a fixed schedule. And so there's a weather input to it. The nice thing that I like is a lot of this new technology now is app-based. So you can run your irrigation system from your phone and not having to go into that garage where you can never find your irrigation controller. And we know so much of the water goes outside, so if you can have a better control of that, then you'll see a lot of water savings. So we actually have rebate programs for new technologies like that to kind of incentivize people, and then we're working with builders to start putting those type of things into new houses.
Right, and those houses are called water smart homes. So we encourage people to look for that. If you're in the new home market, ask the builder, is this a water smart home? You'll be getting those higher efficiency features. Another thing that we did, and I think this was the most important thing that we've done in the entire 18 years of the Conservation Under Drought program, was to begin to restrict the use of turf grass in new development. So Toby and I were, and everyone else at our shop, was running the program, going out and asking people, will you consider giving up your lawn and replacing it with these other plants? And while we were doing that, for every person we got to do that, 28 new houses went up. And many of them, most of them, had grass in the front yard. They just roll out sod. So we were going out and paying people to replace grass, but we weren't doing anything to prevent new home builders from putting that grass in. So we finally said, it's like chasing your own tail, right? Mm-hmm. So we finally said, we can't do that. That's not a sustainable model. We need to change the way new development landscape appears. We still want grass in functional areas, but we shouldn't be putting in tiny front yards, slopey front yards of new homes. We shouldn't be putting it in street medians and parkways and ridiculous places. Let's save it for the parks. Let's save it for the school grounds. Let's save it for your own backyard, places you might actually set foot on it or lay down or recreate on it.
And we've had the garden farms on, and the schools are putting in gardens and reducing their turf and using the water savings to
Right.
pay for the gardens.
Right, and we're collaborating on those projects. They're often getting a rebate to put those gardens in and where the turf grass used to be, so sometimes we can coordinate on that. And we also have the grant program that we work with schools on projects like that, so the kids are learning more about managing water.
Now, there's an enormous amount of turf out there in the schools. So a lot of having these homes built with no grass, no turf at the inset is a great idea. That's the only way to get ahead of
And
this.
I really appreciate the support of the home builders. They were 100. You would think that they would be challenged by that. They were 100% behind us.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah.
Good, good. So what are these lawns look, or not lawns? What are these front yards looking like that is attractive now to a home buyer, especially if they're coming from the Midwest or California where there's a lot of grass?
You know, I think what's happening is there's parity, right? I mean, if I'm looking at new homes, they're all subject to the same restrictions. So they're going to look for how do they create the greatest curb appeal for that new home compared to their competitors. But it hasn't stymied people's desire to have new homes. They know they're more efficient. They know they're attractive. They have a lot of new features in them. And so these home builders have really thrived, whether they're building water smart homes or even building homes under our existing code. So that's been terrific. But like anything, Paul, I mean, you can look around your neighborhood and go, that guy's lawn looks horrible. And I can go out and show you some stunning examples of water smart landscape, and I can show you some where I'm like, you know, I don't know if putting that red yucca in with that white quartz rock really cuts it. So,
Exactly.
so it's whatever you want it to be. I mean, it could be the most stunning landscape, or it could be pretty dismal. Whether it's a lawn or a water smart landscape, it has more to do with the homeowner and their design and the amount of effort they put into it.
So when we're talking,
I'm sorry. You offer demonstration gardens at Springs Preserve and other sites around town.
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
fabulous. Yeah,
That's
so
tremendous.
I want to remind people, you can go to the Springs Preserve Gardens for free. So
Yes.
if you just
Yeah.
want to go look at the
Beautiful, yeah.
gardens, you don't want in any of the
Anytime, just
buildings,
walk
you
through,
just
yeah.
tell them, I want to go visit the gardens, it's free.
Yeah.
so you took the words right out of my mouth there, Stan. I was going to
You
say,
better
what
get
we're
it.
talking about here is Xeric Landscaping or Xericscaping, and you can visit the Springs Preserve for free and see a lot of different angles at desert landscaping. And it's a great time to go out there, take your kids. There's food and a lot of sun out there.
Yes.
So enjoy. So join us next week. What are we talking about next week, Stan?
NV Energy will be back on board for their monthly installment for the Power Shift program, as well as other issues that they might bring up.
So
next
conservation is the name of the game here at Shades of Green on KDWN 720 and 101.5 FM. Have a great week and keep it green out there. See you next Monday.
Thank you, gentlemen.